racing, just like in life, success has a way of coming to those who want it the most, those who chase it the hardest, those who go for it. Jim McGee goes for it. He is the most successful chief mechanic and team manager in the history of IndyCar racing, and he is, no question, the most decorated mechanic ever to emerge from New England. 4 times he was the winning chief mechanic in the Indianapolis 500. His cars have won 9 national championships under USAC, CART, and Champ Car sanctions. All that glory didn't just fall into McGee's lap. He went for it. But McGee's biggest go-for-it decision happened a long way from a racetrack. And to get to that story, I need to tell you this story. McGee was raised in Boston in the Mattapan section. In the service bay of a local Ford dealership worked a mechanic named Paul Duty. This was in the mid-50s when racing in Massachusetts was a crazy blend of full-sized coupes and chopped-up, mean-looking cars called cut-downs. Duty owned a race car, and to McGee that made him a very important person. Before long, Jim was tagging along to the Saturday night brawls at the Norwood Arena, helping Paul and his colorful driver, Garvin Cooper. His nights at Norwood put McGee in touch with a mechanical wizard named Dick Carman. Carman, from Foxborough, had designed a particularly fast cut-down driven by Eddie Hoyle. In McGee's words, quote, "Dick Carman was a genius. He understood things from an engineering point of view," unquote. Carman was something else, too. He was an Indy 500 buff, and his home was packed with literature about Indianapolis and the roadsters which had just come into vogue. By 1957, Carman and young Jimmy McGee were hitting the road to watch the Indy cars anywhere within reasonable driving distance. Trenton, of course. Langhorne, why not? In those days, before carbon fiber and wind tunnels, anyone who could build a well-thought-out cut-down could build an Indy car too, if he was so inclined. Carman and McGee were so inclined. So right there in Carman's basement, they built themselves an Indy Roadster. It was, Jim says, a beautiful car. They designed it, welded it, even sponsored it. Carman with the salary from his engineering job, and McGee, barely out of high school, with money he earned working insane hours on 2 jobs, the days as a flat-rate Ford mechanic, nights in the mailroom at the local newspaper. They hauled that homemade car to Trenton in April of '59, Carman, Hoyle, and McGee. They carried, in McGee's words, 1 set of tires and enough money to get us through the tolls. They were in a little bit over their heads, surrounded by the best cars of the day. The Dean Van Lyon Special, the Agajanian Special, the Bose Sealfast Special, and the best mechanics of the day, George Bignotti, A.J. Watson, Clint Bronner. But they had one thing going for them, the workmanship in that beautiful roadster. McGee recalls Clint Bronner, the gruff old wrench, inspecting their pride and joy and proclaiming, "You guys really built that thing?" Now, Bronner may well have been the top mechanic in all of American racing in 1959, but he was also a terrific judge of talent. Just 1 year earlier, Bronner had arranged the first ever Indy 500 ride for an obscure midget driver from Houston, Texas, named A.J. Foyt. And this same Clint Bronner now saw enough in Jim McGee at Trenton to mention that he might have an open position on the Dean Van Lyne's team for the month of May at Indianapolis. Was McGee interested? You bet he was. Come May, on the strength of this vague job offer, he drove west bound for the Brickyard. But somewhere between Trenton in April and Indianapolis in May in that spring of 1959, some signals had gotten crossed. Bronner had hired a few extra crewmen. McGee wasn't needed. He hung around Indianapolis for the next week anyway, happy to just be at the grand old Speedway. Finally, down to his last $15, he faced reality. It was time to go home. He climbed into his 1953 Ford and headed east on Old Route 40, known back then as the National Road. It was 60 or 70 miles later that Jim McGee had the go-for-it moment that changed his life. I got to the Ohio border, he recalls, and I said to myself, "Why, you chicken shit. Damn it, you can get a job washing cars or doing something, anything, for a couple of weeks." I turned that car around and drove it back to Indianapolis. I went to the track the next morning and I found out that Clint had gotten mad at one of his guys and sent him home. Now McGee stood outside the Dean Van Lyne's garage in Gasoline Alley, and he heard the great Clint Bronner say, "Come on in here, we'll put you to work." And what work Jim McGee has done since that day. His 4 Indianapolis 500 wins came in 1969 with driver Mario Andretti, in 1979 with Rick Mears, 1982 with Gordon Johncock, and in 1989 with Emerson Fittipaldi. And when McGee wasn't winning at Indy, he wasn't far off. His cars have finished second in the Indy 500 7 times. It's a cliche these days to say that a man has been there and done that. With McGee, it's no lie. His 90 victories are spread among such historic ovals as Trenton, Phoenix, Langhorne, and Milwaukee, road courses from Watkins Glen in New York to Riverside in California, even the old fairgrounds dirt miles at Springfield and Du Quoin in the Illinois corn country. He has even watched his cars win in Great Britain, in Australia, and in Japan. His national championships came in 65, 66, and 69 with Andretti, 77 and 78 with Tom Sneva, 79 with Rick Mears, 79 with Emerson Fittipaldi, 89 with Fittipaldi, 1992 with Bobby Rahal, and 1993 with Nigel Mansell. On the team owner side, McGee has worked for giants like Roger Penske, Andy Granatelli, Pat Patrick, Paul Newman and Carl Haas, Bobby Rahal, Parnelli Jones, and his current squad, PKV Racing, among many others. The 2006 Champ Car season marks McGee's 48th year in Major League Racing, and he is the only chief mechanic and/or team manager to have won in each of the last 5 decades. His first big win came in 1965 with Mario Andretti. His most recent came just last June with Cristiano D'Amato. Things have changed in all that time, of course. McGee once told me that in his earliest days, quote, the chief mechanic ran the show. He decided what setup the car ran, even what parts were bought. He even towed the cars. These days, of course, McGee's team can afford a truck driver, and much of the setup work belongs to engineers, but that doesn't faze old Jim. He's right there checking out the computer data the same way he checked out the wear and tear on a pair of treaded Firestones in the Roadster days. Even at my age, he told me, I learn something every day. I don't ever want to feel like I'm the smartest guy on the team. Well, Jim McGee, the truth is that you were the smartest guy on a lot of teams and on a lot of days. But your smartest move and our luckiest move was the decision you made on that May afternoon in 1959, sitting on the side of old Route 40 in that black 1953 Ford. In choosing to make that U-turn and return to Indianapolis, in choosing to go for it, you gave yourself a career, and you gave the rest of us a shining example of the way dreams can take a brave, imaginative man all the way to the top, all the way from a Massachusetts basement to victory lane at Indianapolis, and literally around the world, again and again and again. It is my high honor to present for induction into the New England Auto Racing Hall of Fame, the legendary Jim McGee.
Well, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to come here. It's such a wonderful thing that you folks have been able to preserve here as far as the tradition and all of the history of the auto racing and the people involved in it over the years. And I just want to thank the people from the New England Antique Auto Group for selecting me in this very prestigious group of gentlemen that have preceded me. But I just kind of, looking back, I just feel so fortunate because when I was young, the people that I was associated with were such great role models. They were hardworking, honest, very dedicated, and their passion for racing was incredible. And when you're young and impressionable, these things have a really great bearing on how you perform in your life. And it all started back when I had a brother, and he would take me to the races, and I'd watch guys like Red Cummings and Ralph Moody, and it was just, I was just so involved in how they raced there, and the smell of the hamburgers in the arena, and the racing itself under the lights. I mean, it was incredible, and it was just something that I really wanted to do. And people like Paul Duty, who was the first fellow that I got to know a little bit. He worked, I lived in Mattapan, and he worked in a Ford dealership, Cody Motors, up on Cummings Highway. And all this stuff kind of comes back to me once I start talking about it. But I used to go up there and I'd sit on a box while he was flat rating cars, and I mean, I was a pest, really, believe me, because I was always asking him questions. And then when I was old enough to get a license and drive, we'd go out to his house. He lived out there in Stoughton, and he didn't have a garage, just a little teeny house with, I think there were 5 kids, and we'd be down in the basement pounding away on things till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And then come summer, we'd take the car out of the basement and assemble it back out in the backyard and go to the racetracks. And those years at Norwood and Westboro, Seekonk, I mean, they were great years. And the competition there was so keen. The drivers in that era, I think, they were top-notch guys, and they could have made it anywhere, in the nation. And the more I look back, Dick Carmen, he was another one, a mentor for me. Dick was such a clever and smart engineer. He could have made it anywhere in any type of racing. He was talented, smart, but unfortunately, back here in New England in those days, you just were in the wrong place. It was, a California sport almost, and anybody from the East Coast, they were just kind of looked down on. But still, once I got out there and I saw what talent was out there versus what talent was back here, it really opened my eyes that the people here and the fellows that I raced with at Norwood at that time, I mean, these people had the talent to make it anywhere in the nation. And I just think it's, again, so wonderful that there's not many places. I've been to a lot of banquets and to a lot of places around the country, and to see the people here and the tradition that you've been able to keep, it's just wonderful. It really is, and you're all to be congratulated on that, because I think it's something that we lack in a lot of areas, and it's very important that this history gets passed down from generation to generation. Also, one of the big factors that I learned back here at that time was, the way we worked, and nobody had any money. I mean, it was all what you could do with what you had, and it was a big lesson in life for me, because it's still true that, it's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. And, that's always been a saying that I've used over the years with the people that have worked for me. And again, a lot of my success and the things that I've been able to do was because of the people here. And I want to thank you.